So we got a shipping container. I'm actually really excited about it. It's going to be our new garage basically for storing tools and essentially a workshop. And a shipping container is water resistant, it's kind of wind and weatherproof, and it's also somewhat fireproof because it's metal on all sides except the floor panels. But if we cover up the bottom so embers and stuff can't get under it, then it's entirely fireproof. And it's also really hard to break into because it has a bunch of locks on it and it's again made entirely out of metal. Delivering the shipping container, we were quite concerned that the delivery guy wouldn't be able to make it up our driveway, but it turned out to be not that big of a deal. He had a 4x4 pickup truck and he was able to tow up the shipping container straight up to our pad, reverse, and drop it off. When dropping off the container, it's kind of funny. They kind of shake them off of the sled, and then he was just able to drop it off. The problem was that in order to drop off the container, he needed 60 feet of linear space to basically drop it off and drive away. And the place where we wanted to put the container was much tighter. It has about 40 foot of linear space, and it's very tight on the left and the right side. So it was pretty much a given that we will have to move or winch the container after it was dropped off into that location. We tried to move it with Frankie, which is our Jeep, but on loose soil, Frankie just wasn't getting any traction whatsoever, even in 4x4 and 4 low. So what we decided to do is get a winch, and we attached it to the receiver hitch on Frankie, and we were able to nudge the container and kind of move it into shape or into position for it to be dragged into the space that we wanted to place the container in. But the problem is, in order to do that, you need to build an anchor because while we were moving the container kind of into position, we were using essentially our Jeep as an anchor. But there wasn't enough space to position our Jeep in that area and at the same time winch the container into place. So we had to come up with it. And also, you would never have gotten enough traction on that loose soil. We would have been winching the Jeep rather than the container. So after our first failed attempt at making an anchor, we bought a bunch of metal, essentially rebar, those reinforcement bars, from Home Depot, nailed them into the ground and kind of triangulated them a little bit, but they just got bent out of shape really quickly, even though they were quite thick pieces of metal. So we had to think of plan B. The first day, it didn't move very much. So plan B was to install essentially a fake tree, um, a fully inserted huge piece of lumber. We went to Home Depot, we picked up, I believe it's a 6x8, it's a 6x8 piece of lumber. We dug a hole, and not too deep actually. Surprisingly, it didn't have to be all that deep, about a foot or so. We also triangulated the pole on the sides so it wouldn't lean back and forth. And then the top of the pole, we linked to a rock down the cliff with some tow straps because that was going to take the brunt, well, not the brunt, but a significant load from the winch. And then we attached the winch to the base of the pole, and we protected the pole itself with a few angle iron pieces that we cut and attached on the sides to basically reinforce it. So as we were winching, the bolts from our winch connection wouldn't dig into the wood and make it snap. And we connected the winch to the pole with a couple of pieces of, I believe it's 3-inch by 3/32 steel, and we just drilled some holes and some grade 8 half-inch bolts. And it doesn't, after this whole thing, after we finished moving it into place, and we did top out the winch entirely. So it was pulling at least 12,000 pounds, and I didn't see any deformation in the bolts, and I didn't see any deformation on the steel plates. So that means that was a good attachment strategy. At some point, about halfway through the process of moving the shipping container, we needed to adjust it a little bit. So we also used Frankie and Grocky, which is our Ven, as anchoring points and kind of shimmied the container into place. I gotta say that having a winch on a movable sled, so you can attach it to different vehicles and you can attach it to the front or the back of the vehicle and move it around, is highly versatile. I'm not entirely sure why people install them permanently, because this is really the way. If you own a winch and you need it around, you know, your estate, that's the way to do it. Anyways, after it all, we were able to finally winch the container into place. We used the Egyptian method of adding little tree, I think they're called tree spikes. They're like these maybe 2 inches in diameter, essentially rounds that they sell in the gardening department in Home Depot. They're 8 foot long and they cost about $5 each. So we bought 4 of those. We chopped them up into 30-inch pieces and shoved them underneath each side of the container so we can kind of roll on them. It wasn't like a tremendous help, but it was a difference between our winch topping out and not having enough power to drag the container versus our winch being able to actually winch it into place. It was actually really exciting, a tremendous amount of work. You see it on the hyperlapse, so it looks easy, but it was a tremendous amount of work. But we're very excited and we're going to be using it soon. Now we just need to level it out and we'll be good to go. All right. Have an awesome day.